My son married a girl who had her wedding in a barn, made her own dress like a peasant, and served barbecue instead of a proper dinner. So trashy I could barely watch. My mother-in-law Constance posted on her social media, accompanied by photos she'd secretly taken during our ceremony. This is what happens when you let your children make their own choices. I'll never recover from the embarrassment. The post was designed to humiliate me, to rally sympathy for a mother whose sophisticated son had married beneath him, to paint me as the hillbilly who'd ruined her perfect family's reputation. What Constance didn't anticipate, what she couldn't possibly have known because she'd never bothered to learn anything about me beyond her own assumptions, was that her viral shame post would be seen by people who recognized exactly who I was. The comments started within hours. At first, they were what Constance had expected. Sympathetic murmurs from her social circle, people agreeing that barn weddings were so overdone and homemade dresses were a cry for help. She basked in the validation, responding to each comment with performative sighs about her burden. Then the post escaped her carefully curated network. Someone shared it to a fashion forum. Someone else posted it on Twitter. Within 24 hours, it had been seen by over 500,000 people. And the comments had taken a very different turn. Wait, that's Madison Cole. The Madison Cole. The designer who was literally just on the cover of Vogue Bridal. That homemade peasant dress is a one-of-a-kind creation worth at least $40,000. She's known for making her own gowns. That trashy barn is the Weston Estate, a restored 19th-century historic property that costs $75,000 to rent. Waitlist is 2 years. The barbecue was catered by Marcus Whitfield, Michelin-starred chef. He doesn't do events anymore except for personal friends. Ma'am, your daughter-in-law is a fashion industry legend, and you just called her trashy. The internet never forgets. By the time my husband Oliver showed me the post, it had been screenshot and shared thousands of times. His mother's attempt to humiliate me had become one of the most spectacular cell phones in recent social media history. I'd met Oliver 3 years ago at a charity gala in Manhattan. I'd been there as a featured designer. My label, Cole Atelier, had dressed several celebrities on the red carpet that season, and I'd been invited to showcase a new collection benefiting arts education. He'd been there as a reluctant +1 to his business partner, bored by the pretension and hiding by the bar. We'd talked for 4 hours. He'd had no idea who I was. He just thought I was a woman in a beautiful dress who actually wanted to discuss things other than social status and investment portfolios. I'd fallen in love with his complete indifference to my career. Oliver worked in sustainable architecture. He designed eco-friendly buildings for communities that couldn't afford traditional firms. He cared about materials and impact and leaving the world better than he'd found it. He didn't care about fashion magazines or celebrity clients or which influencer was wearing whose designs. His family was another matter. The Hartleys were old Connecticut money. 3 generations of investment bankers, country club memberships, and carefully maintained social registers. They had expectations about who their children would marry. Women from similar backgrounds, similar pedigrees, similar bank accounts. I had a successful business, but I was a self-made designer from rural Ohio. My parents were a teacher and a carpenter. I'd learned to sew from my grandmother and put myself through fashion school on scholarships and part-time work. To Constance Hartley, I was acceptable as someone her son might date. A charming story of upward mobility to share at dinner parties. But marry? Permanently join the family? That was something else entirely. The wedding had been a deliberate choice. Oliver and I had discussed the expected Hartley wedding, a Manhattan ballroom, for 100 guests we barely knew, a reception designed more for social signaling than celebration. Neither of us had wanted that. Let's do what actually matters to us, Oliver had said. Something real. I'd designed my own dress, a tradition in my family, and something I'd dreamed of since I was a child learning to sew at my grandmother's knee. It was intricate, hand-embroidered, made with techniques I'd spent years perfecting. Fashion insiders had been asking about it for months. I'd promised Vogue exclusive first looks. We'd chosen the Weston Estate because we'd fallen in love with it during a weekend getaway. A restored barn on 200 acres of Connecticut countryside, run by a family who cared about preservation and craftsmanship. It wasn't a budget venue. It was an extremely exclusive one, booked years in advance. The food was personal too. Marcus Whitfield had been my friend since fashion school. His wife worked in textile design, and we'd collaborated on several projects. He'd offered to cater as a wedding gift, creating a menu that reflected both our backgrounds. Oliver's New England heritage, and my Midwestern roots. Every element of the wedding had been intentional, meaningful, and far more expensive than the traditional ballroom affair would have been. Constance had seen none of that. She'd seen a barn, a homemade dress, and barbecue. She'd seen Trashy, because that's what she'd wanted to see. She'd never asked about the venue, the designer, the chef. She'd just assumed that anything different from her expectations must be inferior. The internet's response was swift and merciless. Fashion journalists picked up the story, writing articles about Constance's unfortunate misunderstanding of her daughter-in-law's credentials. Mother-in-law calls Vogue cover designer Trashy in viral post became the headline of the week. People dug into Constance's social media, finding a history of elitist commentary and thinly veiled classism. They found old posts mocking new money and Aravistas, and people who didn't understand proper society. They found evidence of a woman who had built her entire identity on looking down at others. The mockery was relentless. Celebrities who'd worn Cole Atelier designs posted photos with captions like, "So glad to be trashy with Madison Cole." Fashion editors shared images of my work with quotes from Constance's post, the juxtaposition speaking for itself. Memes proliferated. Constance's face photoshopped onto various snobbish characters, her words superimposed over images of haute couture. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from friends, colleagues, clients, all of them finding dark humor in the situation. "Your mother-in-law just gave you the best publicity you could ever ask for," my business partner texted. She wasn't wrong. Cole Atelier's website traffic spiked 400% in 3 days. The wedding dress, photos of which had been scheduled for careful release in Vogue, was now everywhere, discussed in the context of the dress a socialite called homemade. Pre-orders for the next collection doubled. Constance had tried to damage my reputation. Instead, she'd amplified it beyond anything I could have achieved on my own. Oliver was furious. Not about the viral mockery, his mother had earned that, but about the fundamental betrayal of trust. "She took photos at our wedding," he said, pacing our living room. "Photos she wasn't supposed to take, of moments that were supposed to be private. Then she posted them to humiliate you. My wife. The person I chose to spend my life with. She didn't know it would backfire. That makes it worse. She genuinely believed she was exposing something shameful. She looked at our wedding, a day we spent months planning, that was beautiful and meaningful and perfect for us. And she saw trash. She saw you as trash. She doesn't know me. She never tried to know you. I've told her about your career, your accomplishments, your work. She dismissed it because it didn't fit her narrative. She decided you were beneath me the day we met, and nothing was going to change that." He picked up his phone. "What are you doing?" "Calling my mother. This ends now." The conversation between Oliver and Constance lasted 45 minutes. I didn't hear most of it. Oliver had gone into the other room, but I caught fragments. His voice, rising and falling. Phrases like "unforgivable," and "you made your choice," and "I won't have my wife disrespected." When he emerged, his face was set in an expression I'd never seen, grief mixed with resolution. "She's not apologizing," he said. "She thinks the internet reaction is mob justice, and that she's the victim. She says the post was private, and someone violated her trust by sharing it. The post was on a public profile." "I know." She claims she didn't realize. He sat down heavily. "She also said that even if you are successful, it doesn't change her fundamental concerns about our compatibility. She thinks I married down and always will. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. You didn't do anything wrong." He took my hand. "I told her that until she can genuinely apologize to you publicly acknowledging what she did, we're done. No holidays. No visits. No relationship. Oliver, she's your mother. And you're my wife. She doesn't get to treat you like garbage and keep access to our lives. That's not how family works." The weeks that followed were a strange mixture of triumph and grief. Professionally, everything was soaring. Media requests flooded in. Interviews, profiles, features on the designer who handled viral humiliation with grace. The wedding dress became iconic, requested by clients who wanted their own Madison Cole original. The story of Constance's post had transformed from embarrassment to brand mythology. Personally, things were more complicated. Oliver's father reached out, apologetic but ineffective. "You know how your mother is," he said, which wasn't an excuse Oliver was willing to accept. His sister called to express support, but admitted she wasn't willing to openly challenge Constance. The family's response was a study in enabling. Decades of allowing Constance's behavior had made confrontation feel impossible. They've been letting her get away with this their whole lives, Oliver explained. When she said something cutting, everyone pretended it didn't happen. When she humiliated someone publicly, the family closed ranks. I never really challenged it until now. Why now? Because now she's targeting someone I love. Someone who didn't grow up learning to absorb her cruelty as normal. He looked at me with something like wonder. You showed me that we don't have to accept it. That her behavior is a choice, and so is tolerating it. The public apology came 6 weeks later. I don't know what finally broke through Constance's defenses. Perhaps the complete social isolation, as even her country club friends distanced themselves from her viral infamy. Perhaps the realization that Oliver wasn't bluffing about cutting ties. Perhaps, somewhere beneath the snobbery, a genuine recognition of what she'd done. The apology was posted on the same social media profile, public and unambiguous. I owe my daughter-in-law Madison an apology, not because she was publicly revealed to be successful, but because my post was cruel and wrong regardless of her career. I looked at her wedding and saw only how it differed from my expectations. I didn't see the beauty, the meaning, the love that was obvious to everyone else. I was raised to value certain markers of status. I let those values blind me to what actually matters. My son's happiness, his wife's character, the family they're building together. Madison, I'm sorry. I was wrong about you in every way. I hope someday I can earn the right to know you as you actually are, rather than the caricature I invented. Constance Hartley. The internet had opinions about the apology too. Some calling it sincere, others dismissing it as damage control. I didn't care about the internet's opinion. I cared about whether it was real. The first family dinner after the apology was awkward. Constance had clearly been humbled, but old habits died hard. She caught herself mid-sentence several times, starting to say something dismissive before stopping. She asked me questions about my work, genuine questions with genuine interest, though her discomfort was visible. This is difficult for me, she admitted during dessert. I've spent my entire life believing certain things about value and worth. Having those beliefs so publicly destroyed was educational. Humiliating, you mean, Oliver said. Yes, that too. She looked at me. I deserved it. I know that. But I'm asking for a chance to do better. Not because of the public embarrassment, because of Oliver. Because he was willing to cut me off entirely to protect you. And that told me something about who you are to him. What did it tell you? That you're his family now. More than me. More than any of us. She took a breath. I always thought I was protecting my children by steering them toward appropriate choices. I never considered that my steering might push them away entirely. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe not ever fully. But it was a beginning. The wedding photos from the Weston estate hang in our home now. Constance sees them when she visits, which is occasional, cautious, carefully navigated. She's commented on their beauty, on the light through the barn's restored windows, on the joy visible in every frame. It was a beautiful wedding, she said recently. I wish I'd seen that at the time. Why didn't you? Because I was too busy looking for what was wrong to see what was right. She paused. That's been the story of my life, I think. Always cataloging flaws instead of appreciating gifts. I don't know if Constance has truly changed or simply learned to perform change more convincingly. Time will tell. But I do know that her attempt to shame me publicly revealed something important. Not about me, but about the nature of judgment itself. She saw a barn and called it trashy. The world saw artistry, intention, love. She saw a homemade dress and called it peasant work. The world saw a $40,000 couture creation by a celebrated designer. She saw what she expected to see, what she wanted to see, what confirmed her prejudices. And the world corrected her. My mother-in-law posted my trashy barn wedding to shame me. The internet found out who I really was. But the truth is, who I really am was never the point. The point was that she never bothered to ask.